Thanks for taking time to listen to this episode of the Real ResQ podcast. Take a minute to go to therealresq.com to check out these and other great deals from our sponsors here at the Real ResQ. This episode of the Real ResQ podcast is brought to you by Breeze Eastern, the world's only dedicated helicopter hoist and winch provider. SR3 Rescue Concepts, because you don't know what you don't know. And RescueSwimmerShop.com, official high-quality apparel featuring the silhouette. Breeze Eastern. They dedicate themselves to our helicopter rescue world. Since the very first helicopter rescue in November of 1945, Breeze Eastern has designed and manufactured superior rescue hoist solutions. While much of the technology and the unique mission requirements have changed over the past 75 years, their commitment to the rescuers, the operators, and those being rescued has not. Contact them today by visiting them at breeze-eastern.com. SR3 Rescue Concepts is a training company that can help your helicopter training. They train daytime, nighttime, aerial firefighting, hoist, longline, fast rope, rappel, and more. They can assist your program with standardization and safety checks or just an FAA annual refresher. With the certified flight instructor pilots and experienced crew, they are ready to help your agency keep up to date with current techniques, rules, regulations, and equipment. Plus, right now, SR3 is offering 10% off anything in their web store with the promo code, all capital letters, Real ResQ, REALRESQ. Plus, they are offering 10% from their partners Petzl and their equipment. All you got to do is send an email to info@sr3rescueconcepts.com. Mention this podcast, the Real ResQ podcast, and they'll take care of the rest. 15 years ago, photographer and Coast Guard rescue swimmer number 526, Chris Razak, created an iconic photograph. This photograph depicted the silhouette of a helicopter rescue swimmer reaching down for an outstretched hand in need against the American flag backdrop. The image went viral and became a symbol worldwide for the rescue community and the people they help. Its wild popularity inspired Chris to launch RescueSwimmerShop.com, a web store offering official high-quality apparel featuring his evocative image, the silhouette. T-shirts, hats, patches, and stickers featuring the silhouette are available at RescueSwimmerShop.com, including the flagship design So Others May Live. Follow Chris and his story on Instagram with the handle @RescueSwimmerShop. And if you are a rescue swimmer, support rescue swimmers, or just tell people you are one at the bar, this gear is definitely for you. When you get to the website, RescueSwimmerShop.com, enter the promo code, all lowercase, one word, RESCUE, RESCUE, for 10% off your order. Things I Learned from Falling, a memoir by Claire Nelson. Prelude. I remember the sound my body made as it hit the ground. A sharp crack, one that cut through the thump of my weight against the desert floor. Then the white heat of pain that stabbed through my body, escaping through my mouth in an almighty howl. I tried to scramble to my feet, the instinctive reaction to falling, but I couldn't get up. Everything below the arms remained a dead weight. Get up! I heaved my head and shoulders forward, trying to prise myself off the ground, but each time I crumpled, again and again and again. Something in my body was disconnected. Urgent messages were being fired from the brain, but they weren't getting through. Only pain. Unbearable, indescribable pain. A scorching flame gun that set me alight with each attempt to move. I lay there flat on my back, my breathing fast and my heart pounding. I craned my neck to get a look at my legs. I couldn't lift them either, or bend my knees. Oh God, please no. My feet were also immovable, weighed to the desert floor, but I found with intense concentration I could lean them slightly from side to side. I gently wiggled my toes inside my boots. Okay, I wasn't paralyzed. That was something. I felt a strange flicker of hope through the pain and panic, a sense of, I'm going to be all right. But my pelvis was broken, that much was clear. Shattered was actually the word that kept coming to my mind. More than a break, it felt like there were pieces. Every time I tried to sit up, it felt like someone had replaced my hip bones with a bag of broken dinner plates, shards jangling loosely so my shoulders could do nothing but slump back to the ground. As realization of the extent of my injuries set in, so did the cold tingle of shock, and my teeth began to chatter uncontrollably. Like wind-up dentures, a violently loud clacking inside my head. Help! My day pack had dislodged from my shoulder when I had fallen, but thankfully within reach. I yanked it towards me, scrambling in the front pocket for my iPhone, my hands shaking as I dialed 911. All the while, my brain raced to scramble a request together. An ambulance, right? I needed an ambulance. Some medical aid. Any medical aid. I needed help. Out of the corner of my eye, on the screen pressed to my ear, I saw words flash up. Call failed. No. I dialed again. Call failed. I checked the phone and saw I had 0 bars. A horrifying and crushing realization hit me with the full force of its weight. I have no service out here. My stomach lurched. Of course I'm out of range. I'm in the middle of the California desert. It's why I had my phone tucked away in the rucksack. I wouldn't need it here. Except now I did need it, and I had no other means of communication. You fucking idiot, roared the voice inside my head, now dark and furious. How had I been so stupid? No, this had to work. This couldn't be happening. Clinging desperately to denial, I held the phone up high in every direction I could, whispering silent pleas for a miracle as my heart banged loudly in my chest. My eyes locked on the corner of the iPhone screen where the little bars would normally be. I was miles from a signal, miles from the road, miles into the middle of nowhere. I knew I was out of luck. I knew. Yet I couldn't stop trying. And with each redial, each attempt to reach out to someone, anyone, any other human being on this planet, just let someone know that I was here and I was hurt, the absolute futility of it sank in deeper. With each press of the button, my hope melted into cold fear. Call failed. Redial. Call failed. Redial. Call failed. Redial. Call failed. I screamed into the sky as loudly as I could. Help me! Please! And I heard the echoes dissolve into the rocks around me, absorbed like raindrops until all that was left was silence. It just so happens to be that our next guest is the author of Things I Learned from Falling. And she goes into even more detail than what the book does. And we get a great conversation because us from the rescue side, or my world from the rescue side, I get to explain a little bit of what we're doing in the helicopter or what we're doing in a search and rescue. So her and I get to feed off each other and we learn stuff together. It was a great conversation. So please welcome Miss Claire Nelson. My name is Jason Quinn. I am United States Coast Guard Rescue Swimmer number 500. These are my rescues and rescues from those of us that put our lives on the line every day so others may live. This is the Real ResQ podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Real ResQ podcast. You know what, guys? Today's crazy for me. I am beyond stoked to have our next guest here. And, before you go too far into this episode, I'm going to recommend you go back to episode 44 with Mike Calhoun and just kind of get into that episode for a little bit because he talks about this incredible woman who's got a book out the book is called Things I Learned from Falling. Her name is Miss Claire Nelson. What's up, Miss Claire Nelson?
Hi, Jason. Oh, you're very kind. That's a great
Well,
intro.
you're incredible, is what you are, because the story and everything about you, your book, even what Mike said is like, holy smokes. So, hi,
Hi.
thank
I
you
think
for
you
coming
guys,
on.
I think you guys are incredible. I'm not special, so you guys are doing the incredible stuff out there. So, wow.
Well, thank
Seriously.
you as well. It's much appreciated on that. But your story, everything about it, and before we get too far into it, if you don't mind, like, because now I know who you are. If anybody hasn't listened to this book or read the book, go get it, listen to it, read it, embrace it, and just learn from it. It's amazing. But if you don't mind, just kind of introduce yourself to everybody, kind of a little bit who you are, a little bit of background of you.
Well, I am a New Zealander, but I generally live in the UK in London. I am a freelance writer, generally writing about travel, a bit about food. Um, and I love the outdoors. And so despite living in a very, very busy city where I don't get to go outdoors very much, I've become to learn over the years that being out in the wilderness is my happy place. And yeah, trying to think of trying to think what else I can tell you about me.
Well, let's say where you grew up in New Zealand, North or South?
North Island, yeah.
Okay, so are you an Aucklander?
I was born in Auckland, but then
Okay.
I grew up. I grew up in Wellington, so it's kind of the funny rivalry between Auckland and Wellington. It's I've sort of split across the two.
Oh, nice. All right, I get that. So I mean, I got friends over in Auckland, so
Okay.
we won't hold it against him or. Now I'm talking to you now, so yeah.
That's it. No, get her off. Yeah.
All right. So I mean, you growing up in New Zealand, you've got like, I mean, Lord of the Rings was filmed in New Zealand. That's your backyard. What? Like,
And this is the funny thing. I grew up in this very, very outdoorsy place. And yet I didn't appreciate it when I lived here. And I remember being from a young age, I was so keen to get out of New Zealand. And I know for anyone who's not from New Zealand, they're like, what is wrong with you? Like, why would you leave? But I wanted to travel and see the world, and I wanted big adventures, and I wanted to be a writer and all of these things. It didn't really lend itself to living in this tiny little island in this kind of in the bottom of the world. So I was so keen to get out where I thought all the action was happening. And it was really only when I was in the UK that I started to kind of, because I think living in a city like London where it's just so, it's so full on all of the time, which is part of its, magic.
yeah.
I started to appreciate getting out of the city and going into to walking the trails and doing a lot of hiking and things whenever I could. But yeah, in New Zealand, it didn't. It seems strange, and people assume that that's kind of maybe something that is where I found my love for the outdoors. But I think now, the more I think about it, being in the outdoors was sort of this natural. It wasn't a concept to me. You just were outside a lot.
Yeah.
You walk to school on the beach.
Yeah.
You don't. I'm always climbing trees. I got detention once for climbing too high in a tree. And so
That's what I'm talking about.
right. And you're always clambering over rocks and in dunes and going up into the bush tracks behind in the hills behind where we grew up. And so it wasn't like, oh, I'm really into hiking. It was just you mess around and you're always outside and you're getting dirty. And so I'm thinking that really must be something that is deep down in the roots of me.
Yeah. I would say so with everything. I mean, heck, even all your writing and everything you've done, but one of the things I thought was great is not only were you the outdoorsy and hiking, like you were a little food blogger as well. And like, so you're eating at all these luxurious places and trying all this crazy food. And
man,
like,
I don't even know how I ended up there sometimes, like I mean, I was saying to you earlier before we recorded, I feel like I'm winning things a lot of the time. It's kind of like this looks interesting. Let's try this. Let's see where this road goes. Which, both metaphorically and as we'll probably talk about later, something that I do maybe when I'm hiking. But it, I was living this life, and it was like, wow, I'm a city person. I'm working for a magazine, and have the social media, the boom of the social media presence, and
right.
and this sort of whole. So, on the surface, this life, it was very exciting. And I mean, it was very exciting. None of that was insincere in that way. But, at the crux of it, it wasn't a fulfilling lifestyle in the sense that it was very everything was fleeting and momentary and competitive. Yeah. And that it's not something that can really make you feel like it's worth the amount of time and stress that goes into it.
Yeah. And you talk about that in your book quite a bit, actually, as you're laying in the desert.
Right. A lot of time to think. Yeah.
So I'll tell you what, let's get into that a little bit. So,
yeah.
All right. I know what the book is about. Without ruining it for everybody, I'm going to tell everybody again and again and again, go listen to it, go read it, go buy it. The story is incredible. But give everybody a rundown, like what's the book about, and then we'll get into a couple of the details, and then. So bottom line is you are a survivor, and that is why you are here with me today. I'm psyched.
I mean, it's such a crazy story in that there's two parts of this book. So the book's about my life in London, and sort of this idea of, the life that we try and present to other people versus our, real selves, and how these, trying to value one over the other can end up making us feel very isolated and alone. And this idea that we need to kind of be able to, not lean on anyone else for help. And this is all very much part of both a New Zealand mindset, and I think in a British mindset that I'd kind of fallen into, and I found myself very lonely. So it's talking about that side of my life, but then also how that drove me to seek the thing that makes me really happy, which is being in the outdoors. And I moved to Canada for a couple of years, or so that was the plan. And during my trip, a few months in, I take a side trip to California, end up in Joshua Tree National Park, and I slip on a solo day hike and break my pelvis. And
so when you say slip, let's clarify this again. Mike mentioned it in his podcast as well. You slip 20 to 25 feet. That's not a slip. That's a straight up fall and bust your ass.
Yeah. So I literally busted my ass. This is the thing. I literally hit rock bottom. I mean, I was trying to I was trying to find the trail. I didn't know I was lost, but I was trying. Basically, I knew there was some scrambling and some bouldering on this trail, and I was up on this boulder stack. I had to try and find my footing to get across the other side to what I thought was the trail on the other side of it. And it was then that I lost my footing. I was testing the foothold. Yeah. I lost the foothold. I slipped and then dropped and then hit the ground.
How did that go again?
It was more like a crack, but
I think you actually mentioned there was a loud howl when you hit the ground. So I imagine,
Yeah, it's like an animal sound that just comes out. So.
Oh my gosh. When Mike's mentioned that in his episode, I remember sitting myself like, man, I've fallen off stuff, and who hasn't fallen out of a tree or tripped over something and you bust your head or something, you're like, oh gosh. But for those like you who have fallen and really, really been injured, there's a whole new level of pain. There's a whole new level of, you're like, what the heck was that? So, and that's what
it's on another level. The funny thing is, I'd never broken a bone before that.
And, so that was a first timer.
Oh yeah. And there's always this sort of spoken joke that if I do something, it's the hard way. So it's like the first time I break a bone, it has to be like full on shatter my pelvis, like just really go for it. There's no point doing anything by halves. But the pain is really hard to remember now. And I think that the brain actually, the doctor said to me, he said, you will forget the pain because the brain is designed that way, that you forget pain. It's hard to remember it after the fact, because it's a defense thing. And also, I suppose it's that way, otherwise women would never give birth more than once, because it's like, so there's a physiological reason for that. So it's hard to remember it now, but I'm glad for that, because it was the worst pain I've ever felt.
Yeah, not good. All right, so you're laying in the desert for 4 days, and what people don't understand, and this is something that you touch on a little bit in the book, as far as what you're going through throughout the day, but you don't realize how long those minutes are until you're laying there and you literally can't move, and you're like, oh, this is going to be a long time. So for you to sit there in the desert for 4 days, and that, like I've been through survival schools, I've been through some training that was pretty hardcore, and every minute I'm like, oh my God, is this ever going to be over? And you're stuck, like you can't do anything.
No, they were the longest 4 days of my life, obviously, but it every year I sort of, when the date comes up of the day that I fell, and for the next 4 days I'm very aware of them, and I kind of I kind of don't even intentionally do that, but I think I would intentionally do it if I wasn't already so conscious of it, because I sort of think, wow, I would still be lying there right now, and then the next day I'd still be lying there right now. And in my my current real-time life, I'm doing so much, and it's like, how am I still lying out there, because we fill our days, and and I think people have appreciated this during the pandemic, but when your days are less busy, our concept of time completely shifts. Right. So when you're lying in one spot and you're just waiting as well, and not knowing how long you're going to be waiting for, I mean, that version of time is like on another realm. It's really slow.
Yeah. You're not kidding. And some of the stuff you talk about in your book is as you're lying there and you're trying to deal with desert heat, getting sunburned. You're remind me again, you were in shorts, a tank top, and you had a spare t-shirt with you, correct?
Exactly, yes.
Man, that's pretty good. I remember all that from you talking to me on a book.
You got it.
My wife says I don't listen. All right, honey. Hey. Yes, I do.
Witness.
As you're laying in the desert, totally broken, I know you go into some details and stuff, but like, what are you thinking throughout the time you're there? I mean, again, the book is very descriptive, but you're there for 4 days in one spot. You know what? I'll tell you what, a side story. I went out hiking with my daughter, Haley, and you just got to talk to her. She's super sweet, right? Yeah. I sat down on a rock for about 5 minutes. I was like, man, my butt hurts. I need to move. 4 days, 4 days in the desert. Ridiculous.
I mean, thank you for that story, because honestly, I think people get so, quite rightly, they're thinking so much about the pain of the broken pelvis, but just the pain of lying in one spot and not being able to move, like that discomfort was also really overwhelming. Even after one day, like 24 hours of literally pressing against the same points in your body, on your back and your heels and everything, it's like, oh man, that was a different pain, but it was there as well. So it sort of compounded on top of what, because if I wasn't moving the pelvis, I could kind of manage that pain, but then you've got the rest of the body is just like radiating with this really strong ache, and it would just get worse and worse and worse, the pressure of it.
I think you actually mentioned in the book about having a rock, like either in your like upper back or in your behind your head or something, and you could the little pebbles, and you're like, oh my God, this is freaking ridiculous.
Yeah because you start fixating on things but the way the mind goes when you're in that zone. I mean, again, I can't even speak from my experience, but I really understood what they mean by survival mode, because you hear it and you just think, oh, you can't. I can't even remember what I used to think survival mode was, but it was, I remember being so surprised at how my brain shifted. And it was almost like I could see it shifting, and it kind of just really, it was like, I've described it before as like a camera lens, like narrowing in, and all the stuff that you don't need, and all the, because my brain's so noisy, like all the time. Like I just cannot get out of my head all the time. But in that moment, all that stuff went away. It's like the brain went, no, don't have time for this. No, shut it down. We're just going to focus on getting out of here. That's like the sole focus. It really narrowed. And then it was weird. It was almost like you know, like in the old that sort of the Terminator movies, and they've got the robot and all the little computer calculations come up in this vision. It was like that. And then, but in the back of my mind, and it was like it was going through every memory I'd ever had to see if there's anything useful it could use. And I was almost like I could.
It's amazing.
Yeah, wow. It's so weird, and it's like I'm not doing any of this. This is just my brain going right. No, yeah, you're thinking, you're overthinking everything. I'm just going to go ahead and try and do some calculations here. And so, like, you know, I mentioned in the book, like later on, like thinking about say drinking urine, like I never thought I'd have to do it. I've never been taught whether you should or not. I'd read about people who'd survived, like being at sea and stuff, and having to do that. And I thought, well, okay then, you know. And so anything that I had digested and consumed at some point in my life it's there in the back of my mind. And I always think I have a terrible memory, but when you need to, your brain will kind of be like, no, I put that aside like in 1996, and I'm just going to come back and use it now. And that was fascinating to me, sort of seeing that survival mode happen.
Yeah. And that, by the way, the whole urine side, I don't want to do a big spoiler alert, but seeing you brought it up, that is one of the survival trips that they had taught us in survival school for desert stuff, is that you can recycle that. It's not ideal, but it is a survival tool, because it's your body has excess water in it. It's getting rid of, you are correct where you're getting rid of the bad stuff out of your body, but at the same time, it's water. It's water your body doesn't need anymore.
Can we talk about that for a second? Actually,
absolutely, please do.
Yeah, because I'm so fascinated. And honestly, I'll preface this by saying I really don't care about what strangers on the internet have, what their opinions of me are. But I find it really funny that I will constantly have comments from people saying, "Oh, you shouldn't have drunk your own urine. You're not supposed to do that. Everybody knows that." And they're really condescending. I'm like, whatever. Like when you're in that position, you can decide what to drink, whatever you want.
Next time you're laying in the desert for 4 days, come tell me you're not going to do that.
Yeah. It's like, you know, I know that if you drink it too much, it's going to start being countereffective. And it's like, well, when you're either going to die of, you know, dehydration, or you might die of renal failure from drinking too much urine. Like if those are your options, you just have to pick one. Like, I mean, come on. Yeah. So I'd love to hear it from someone who actually knows this stuff to tell me more about that.
So I wish I had actually more information for you. I remember watching Bear Grylls.
Yeah.
And he talks about it on his, like, oh, you're stuck at sea, you drink your own urine, because that is you're not going to drink seawater. There's too much salt in it. It actually dehydrates you more. You know, I'm not saying anybody out there start going drinking your own urine, like right after.
There's lots of things to drink if you have options.
You're right. But when you're down to nothing and you have zero, man, you go. I'll be the first to say I'll do it. I'm stuck in the desert for 4 days with a broken hip. You better believe it.
Yeah.
So
you just do it. And honestly, the other thing is, I think that because what you need probably more than anything is to have something to hold on to, and to like where the mind goes, the body follows, right? So it's like I was very aware of that too. So I had to keep my head in a good space. And when you're that thirsty, like having something to drink can actually be as, you know, impactful as anything to keep you in good spirits.
Wow. So that, you know, you saying that there's this will to survive, you know, and here's survivors like yourself that have come out of the forest, the desert, the whatever, the sea, they're stuck in the ocean for 30 days. They have this will to survive. That was you for 4 days. And there are things like I was going to ask you about, you know, survival schools and whatnot. You had already mentioned it earlier that no, you hadn't had any, but you went through stuff that we are trained. And one of them is recognize you're in a survival situation. I'm going to go over this a little bit later as well. But the other one is you start inventorying what's in your pack. All right, what do I have with me? Oh, I've got a map. I can use that. I've got my other shirt. I can use it. I've got a hat. I can use that. And you're like, wow, I got a walking stick that I made a cross out of, right?
Yeah. Again, like this is just the brain kind of going like, we don't have time to think about, how scary this is. We've got to think about what have you got, what can we use? And it was almost just like something else took over, and literally running through. Also, later on, I would run through my pack and think, what else can I drink? Which of course is like literally nothing. Yeah. But it's that whole going, right, what have we got? What can we use? And kind of, everyone's, I don't know. I mean, I'm an 80s child, but everyone's inner MacGyver kind of comes out, right? And it's sort of like, right, I need some duct tape, and
Oh, that's fantastic. My gosh. All right. I want to throw some mad props out here to your two friends who you went down to house it for. Please remind me of their names again.
Natalie and Lou.
Natalie and Lou. Natalie and Lou, good job. Like from me to you guys, amazing. Just to make the phone call to be, hey, can you go check on her? Something's up. And that's good friends. So everybody out there, you need friends like Nat and Lou. Okay.
People, you need to take notice, people.
Yeah. Because the fact that they made a phone call that something was odd, something was off. I mean, that's awesome. And then I want to get into now like the Riverside County guys now. So because this would be me, the phone call comes into us. Hey, we've got a missing hiker. For me, in the Coast Guard, it was like, oh, we've got a missing kayaker, or we have a missing vessel. And I can tell you, and I can probably speak for the majority of people out there, you get a phone call like that and you're like, oh, here we go again. Let's just burn some fuel over a search pattern for like the next 18 hours looking for somebody that's probably drinking whiskey and got drunk at the bar down the road. So I'm not saying that those guys did that. All right. So Mike or Manny and Eric and Mike and all those guys, no, they didn't do that. All right. Not for you. Okay. But so the call comes into them and says, hey, we've got a mission hiker, because they find the car you're using in the parking lot at the beginning of the trail. But so for us, when we're going out, you are that needle in a haystack. And it's interesting because now you're at, let's say, 100 feet above the terrain, and you create search patterns. You actually mentioned this in the book as well, where you hear the helo come close and then the helicopter goes away. Helicopter starts to come close and then it goes away. And that's us doing our search pattern. And we're, trying to be very specific. Okay, I've looked, and you're doing your up, down, left, right, your pattern grid searching for people.
See, I just thought they were just toying with me.
Oh, they may have been. I wasn't in the aircraft.
No, I'm kidding.
I go, oh, no, just kidding. Oh,
not too close. No, bye. Here we are. No, bye.
Yeah. But now, so for everybody out there that's a survivor, what we are doing, we are trying to do our best to cover as much land area as possible. We're going to do different search patterns, overlap search patterns, to make sure we get a grid. When we were talking to Mike, so they were getting ready. They were just about out of fuel, which we call bingo, and we're going back to the airport. And they were like, "Hey, let's check out this one spot which somebody was at 10 years ago."
Yeah.
And here you are hearing it coming in. So, all right. So this is where I guess I got to ask you a question now. You start hearing the helicopter come closer. What is going through your mind?
I mean, I was at my lowest ebb at that point. And I mean, I had never given up hope, but I think just that was the day that my hope was so diminished, and I was really kind of in and out of it. I was so dehydrated. I have to say, I loved that Mike told the effing coyote story.
Yeah.
Coyote. I always wondered, should I put that in the book? I don't want to make them sound unprofessional, because obviously they are, gold star professionals, but it was such a wonderful, funny moment. And it really was the thing that snapped me back into consciousness, and made such a difference. And so I was able to hear the helicopter. Yeah. So, when I realized that they were out looking, it was just, I was so like recharged, like this adrenaline was like, and I remember I was like shaking, like I need them to come and see me. But of course I when I fell, it was only after I fell, I realized I was off the trail by a mile. So it was this real sense of, oh my gosh, they're not even going to come looking over here. And it was only much later on that Manny was telling me how Eric had suggested they kind of exit this one part of the park, which is where I was. And it, like, I get tingles thinking about that, because it could have been so different, right? And it's just this one person who has this, had this experience and was able to kind of, I don't know, it's this tiny little pieces. It just really blows my mind. And I saw the photo that Manny took of the location, and it again blows my mind. I don't know how they did it. I don't know how they saw me. They're incredible. They really are.
Well, they saw you because of your signal and Mike talks about it specifically with, and you talking about it in your book, where you're holding the stick up and you've got your hat and the plastic bag in your shirt and anything. Wait, hey, here I am. And it's something for us in the air. Like it's that abnormal. It's, oh, what was that? And then, you bang a U-turn and you come back and you're like, oh. What is it? So out of curiosity, did they yell at you and be like, hey, are you Claire? Did they call you out?
Well, they said, we see you. And I was like, it's like, that was just honestly, it was the greatest moment of my life, that we see you, we're going to come get you. And I just, because at that point I'd given everything that I had into that last time they came over. It was like, gave them everything that I had. I had reinforced the sunshade I'd made with the stick. So I had a white plastic bag on it. I'd put my hat on top of that, which was white. And it was like, I was holding it as high up as I could. I was trying to wave it super fast, that again, like it would look like it wouldn't be like a slow wave. It was a fast wave. And, my whole body was in pain doing this, but I gave it everything and it paid off. But when they said those words, it was like, I literally collapsed everything, just dropped my stick. And it was like, I don't have to fight anymore. And it was just there's just no way. I can't describe that elation, that moment of kind of going, well, I'm going to die here. And then being like, oh, wait, no, I'm not. And you kind of go into shock a bit. It's just indescribable euphoria.
Oh my gosh. I love it. And hearing that from you is, because when we see somebody like you that's down there and we're like, hey, oh, we got you. I mean, I had a good night's sleep, or at least I think I did the night before. I just had a full breakfast and now I'm out searching for you and I come across you. I mean, this is why we do what we do. It's, you didn't go out on purpose to get lost. It's an accident. And that's what I want to come do. I want to come get you.
And this is it. Like, I also appreciate that not everyone comes out of these situations, able to then tell that story. And I really was very adamant that I wanted to kind of be a cautionary tale and be like, look, this is where I went wrong. These are the mistakes that I made. And also these are the things that turned out to be, good decisions. And I mean, I mentioned this in the book too, like, I mean, in New Zealand, whenever I'd come back to New Zealand and you read in the paper, because there's always people going missing on hikes here, and they underestimate. We don't have animals that are going to kill you, but the weather will kill you.
So, New Zealand specifically.
In New Zealand, yeah.
Okay.
So it's like none of our animals are going to get you, but the weather will get you. So people underestimate that, and they get caught out. I'd read these stories of people and they haven't told anyone where they're going and they haven't dressed appropriately, and I'll kind of roll my eyes and be like, oh, people need to learn how to, what they're doing when they go into the outdoors. And then I go and do the same freaking thing.
Yeah.
And I was so, I was embarrassed about that. But then it's like, well, but this is the thing, like, you can think you know what you're doing. And in a way, the more comfortable and confident you get, the more complacent you get, the fewer steps you take. When you stop feeling scared when you're doing something and you stop feeling the risks, you stop preparing for the risks. And I think that's the big problem. Yeah. And I think too, people can feel very secure when they're in somewhere like a national park where there are established trails. You think, oh, this is safe. They wouldn't just let people come in here and walk around in flip-flops and go on these trails if it was dangerous. But like it's the land that's protected in a national park. The people, you still got to look out for yourself.
True statement. Very true statement.
So, I really, really feel like now that I can, share this with people, then that's my responsibility now to do that.
Yeah. I'm going to give a shout out to the California Highway Patrol boys as well, because they had a female EMT come down and load you on a backboard, and so you actually call it I laughed about this in the book when they're like, I felt like I was being put in a body bag. I'm not dead yet. I was like, that's funny.
You put me up in a body bag, just like literally just this one little hole in it. And I have to say, I should shout out, because that was Jen, and Jen also was mentioned in Mike's story as being the one flying the Cessna, and who found that guy who'd been out there for 7 days. That's the same Jen. Same person. She's just incredible.
Amazing. Yeah, she's awesome. Oh,
yeah. And then the pilot at CHP, he was flying the helicopter and with the stretcher. I mean, like, I had no way of telling where I was, but apparently the winds were really high, and it was a really difficult procedure to kind of to drop Jen into the canyon. And so and then between them and so there were the 3 crew on CHP, and then Manny and Eric from Riverside County Sheriff, and the 5 of them, they were given an outstanding service award, and I was like so happy for that. And like, that's just, they should be getting the accolades. It's amazing.
Well, we give them a little bit right now. You're here with me, so you get it. So they already had their turn. It's your turn now. Okay. I'm just kidding, you guys. I'm kidding. You guys are amazing. Oh, it's funny. So you get hoisted out of there, which is something else that, again, for people that don't know, with broken hips, as you're getting hoisted out, and I don't even know if you would remember this being hoisted out. I know it's not detailed very much in the book, but the Bowman bag, or the bag that you were put into, is hoist capable, and
That's
actually
cool.
Well, it depends on the brand, but there's a Bowman bag, Pep bag. There's a couple other ones out there, which I can't remember right now. That's terrible. But
I love it because I don't know any of this stuff, and I'm constantly fascinated about how you guys do it.
Hey, let me help you.
Tell me more.
All right. It's good. Good. So basically, once they got you onto the backboard, which I understand was agonizing pain to have you roll over, that, again, broken hips. And like, the tough part about that is that Jen came down and she didn't have any medication to give you, like no morphine. Like, you felt everything as you're getting ready to roll. Oh,
it was worse than when I actually fell the first time. That pain was worse, because everything had kind of settled in, and then they had to roll me. That was a moment.
I understand it. I feel you. But then the next thing you know, you're getting hoisted in I'm going to call it the Bowman bag, and the Bowman bag squeezes the body as it gets hoisted. So, and then once you get to the aircraft, now the hoist operator now has to bring you in as gently as possible. Again, for us that are not injured, we're there to save you. You're gentle, but you're only gentle enough to, I'm going to get this in as safely as possible. So
I remember the hoist. I remember it because the board was slightly like, moving slightly underneath me. So it was like, ow, ow, ow. But, it at the same time, this was the greatest moment of my life. So it was a strange sort of euphoria and pain, but excitement, and sort of at the same time not quite processing that this was really happening, and I wasn't lying on the floor of the desert anymore. And I remember seeing I think the flight officer's name was Chad Thomas, and I just see this helmet, like this kind of astronaut-y helmet, like through this tiny little hole in the bag, and I'm getting closer and closer, and then because I didn't get pulled into the aircraft, I was underneath it, and then they took me to a landing area, so that then the medical.
Well, that's right, because they fly an A-Star out there, which is a smaller. That's right. I forgot about that. Okay.
Yeah, so I'm underneath it. I'm like dangling, and I was kind of, a part of me was like, it's a shame I can't see out, because this is it'd be kind of amazing. But then they took me to a landing area, and then I was picked up by the Mercy Air helicopter, and then they took me in, and they gave me morphine, and it was like, oh, okay, I need more morphine. Keep it coming.
That feels way better than a broken hip.
Yeah. I think I need more morphine. I'm like, we can't give you any more. I was like, no, I need more.
Yes, you can.
You know,
Yes, you can.
yeah. Come on, you're holding out on me here. So, yeah.
Wow. Yeah, that whole side of it is unreal. Like, and I understand exactly what you talk about and the whole thing. And then I understand the guys that are on the line, or girls that do this. They go out and we're going to do everything we can to make you comfortable and get you out of a bad situation, because you're in a bad situation. We want to get you to a good situation.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, the amount. I mean, I did obviously, prior to this, my only understanding of these sort of scenarios is like search and rescue people come in, and then the helicopter might come in and like hoist you out. But to see it in action and to hear more about it from you guys and to understand it is like the skill that's involved is just phenomenal. And everything from Manny and Eric having to find somewhere to land their helicopter, to then hike down, and like, I mean, one of them dropped the radio because it was tricky climbing and broke the radio. Not naming names, but like,
it's a government radio there, boys. That's caught.
It was fine. It was fine. A little bit of duct tape. It was fine. But then them having to like put themselves in that situation to get down there, and then having to call in sort of some more skilled people to use their incredible skills to get over me and drop this. It's just all of that involved, and then they have to get back out again. I actually only realized later on that I never really asked Manny Eric how they got out again, because it was hard to get in. I know that they did, but that's incredible work. For one person who's got themselves into a situation, then there's 5 people who have had to bring this incredible amount of skill to it. It just blows me away, and I never really understood it. And then for a long time, I never understood or realized that there was more than. I just thought everyone was search and rescue. I didn't understand there was different, different units from sort of county sheriff units and highway patrol units. I didn't understand any of that, and so it's been an incredible realization to learn all of that.
It's the whole search and rescue world. I love every bit of it. I really do. I mean, my I'll call it my bread and butter, or my passion is the helicopter world. But there are so many volunteer teams that will go hiking through different deserts. Arizona has one, Montana has one. There's stuff up here in the Northeast of America, New England area. It's just what everybody does. Like, it's your friends that are out there hiking. So you go join a search and rescue party, and next thing you know, you're out searching for your buddy or whatever, So
it's amazing.
Yeah. So one of the things that you talk about in your book, which is kind of funny, and I'm gonna put you on the spot a little bit, is you're not a very religious person, and however, you do say that your religion would be your outdoors. Is that about accurate?
That'd be about right. I mean, I suppose nature has become, like, the natural world that we live in is very much where I feel most spiritual and most connected to something otherworldly. Is the most worldly aspect of our lives. It's also my most spiritual environment,
which I'm all about. I dig it. Now I am a religious guy. I go to church. I give my 10%. At least I try to. But I talk about this in some of my other episodes where I graduated swimmer school, and the guy that came in to talk to us on the day before graduation, he said, those that are in distress are praying for a miracle, and they're going to get you. And he's pointing at me and the other guys in my class, and I'm like, wow, that's kind of a lot loaded on us, and you don't realize it until you have somebody that, like yourself. So the question is going to be, were you praying for a miracle?
Oh yeah, 100%. I prayed. I wished on shooting stars. It sounds really corny, but it's
great.
True. I did pray. I prayed to whatever was out there. I honestly, and I feel like the universe still to this day pushes me in directions I'm supposed to go and gives me signals if I'm just opening myself up to it. So some people, for them, that is religion. For them, that is a God. For me, I just call it the universe. It's like whatever it is, but and especially after this experience, and I was holding on to something. I mean, it's hope, isn't it? And I think a lot of religion, it just comes down to sort of hope and love, right? And so those are the things that keep us alive. So I was praying and wishing and calling out to that, and and then it did something came from above and rescued me.
Literally.
Literally.
There's a helicopter overhead from above.
There's really cool looking angels, basically. So yeah.
In like a Darth Vader helmet. It's cool.
Right? Really badass.
Is that weird? I'm not really sure, but
it works for me. It works for me.
Oh my gosh, that's hilarious. Your story is incredible. It really is. The whole survival story. I couldn't get enough of the book. I'm honored to have you here. Just talking to Mike, I couldn't get enough from Mike, and he only talks about your story for about 11 minutes. But that's why I'm so happy you're here. I would like to turn it over to you a little bit. And actually, I want to do two things. I want to touch on the 7 steps of survival for everybody out there, and then I want to ask you kind of what you carry now in your pack. If you go and hiking, whether it's a day hike, whether it's a couple of days, whatever it is. So let me start with this: is the 7 steps of survival for everybody out there. And this is stuff that we learn as swimmers, as rescue men. And the first one is you need to recognize you're in that survival situation. For you, Claire, you had a broken hip, you couldn't walk. So yeah. That was an easy recognition.
Very easy.
Right? Check mark. Okay. For some of us out there that have, again, you said it yourself, where you get confident, you get a little complacent, and you're just, I'm just going for a day hike, and you don't realize you get off the trail. I've heard of guys that go snowboarding off the trail. Next thing you know, they're in chest deep snow and they're stuck. Wow. Stuff like this happens all the time. So you need to recognize that you're in that situation. The second thing that you need to do, so step number 2, is inventory. And that is get everything together. Now, Claire, the greatest part about your story is you did this naturally. You reached into your pack and you're like, okay, what have I got? You've got 2 maps. You've got a boatload of sunscreen. Wait, slip, slap.
Slip, slop, slap.
Slip, slop, slap. I was close. I love it. So inventory, everything that's in your pack, everything that you can be used for stuff. And that's what you think is not relevant is all of a sudden relevant. And you learn that with something as simple as a map, a map of the local area. The next one is shelter. So step number 3 is shelter, and creating a shelter. And that's to get out of the elements, whether it's in the sun or in the winter or in the cold. And what was interesting, again, about your story is you did this naturally by creating a barrier using the map. I don't want to give away all your details of this book, but you created somewhat of your own shelter as best that you could with what you had to work with. I think it was brilliant. So step 4, signals. You made your own signal, that emergency signal. There are all sorts of signals out there: smoke, flares, signal mirrors, a white trash bag, and a shirt on the end of a stick that just doesn't look like normal terrain. That's what it's kind of funny. You see all those movies of what was the one with Tom Hanks there? Castaway. You write help on the on the ground, you're burning fires, you're doing whatever you can. Now, you having broken hips and not being able to move, that's a whole nother dynamic. Step 5 is going to be water. Anything you can consume to stay hydrated, because as you talk about in your book, your hydration is, you can only live about 3 days without water. And then after that, your body is going to dry up. And again, you talk about it quite a bit. Just the feeling of being dehydrated. So step 6 is going to be food, which, convenient enough, you can't actually eat without being hydrated. And we kind of learned that too, didn't we, Claire?
Yeah. What's funny is people ask me more than anything else, but how did you go without food? And weren't you hungry? Honestly, that shuts down until you've got enough water. Your body doesn't care about food. And that was so interesting to experience that. Yeah. Someone who's usually constantly hungry and usually stuffing my face
with delicious food all the time from all over the world.
Well, yes, this is my was my lifestyle. And then no, it just when you need water, your body's like, no, I don't want to eat. Plus, you can't swallow and you can't chew. So
Yeah. And then step 7 is to play. And this is not something, so play is to keep your mind occupied and pick a game, and you take little pebbles and you're trying to land it in the can over in the area or whatever. Or you create games to keep yourself entertained. That's actually something that we never talked about, and you don't actually talk about too much in your book. Did you find yourself at all while you were laying there just kind of playing it, like maybe grabbing a pebble, maybe counting something? Or
no, but that's really interesting. I didn't know that was one of the survival steps, because for me, I had this digital camera, and I was using it to kind of video my, and people, I don't know, there's a lot of misunderstanding about why I was doing that. It was people like, she's vlogging and she's done, like, no, I'm not. It was never meant for people to see it. It was really just, I write, I journal, I do this stuff. Obviously, I didn't have the opportunity to do that, but I was just making these videos and just sort of, sometimes I was ranting, sometimes I was making little jokes. Like I was doing this, I had this lip balm and it was vanilla flavored. I still use the same one. And I was eating it to try and take the taste of urine away. And so I think at one point the heat was so bad and I was going out of my mind, and I was doing these funny little infomercials to myself, like don't leave home without it, and yeah, and that's
play.
Honestly, play, and this is what
keeping your mind occupied.
Yeah. I mean, I never knew that. That's really
look
really
at you. You're doing it on your own. You didn't even know.
Either that, or I was just really going a bit bonkers. But,
no, well, maybe no.
Maybe.
No. Wow. Well, so those are the 7 steps to survival, and you literally hit every single one of them. Like just naturally, that natural survival, again, that will to survive, and that's what you did. It's amazing. So now the question to you: what do you pack in your survival kit now anytime you leave?
Well, first of all, loads of water.
Yeah, come on.
I get very stressed out when I feel like I'm going to be short on water, for obvious reasons. That level of dehydration never leaves you. This was a great tip that, I got from the Riverside unit guys. So to take a mirror, a signal mirror, which I never knew that before. And what's great is I put that in some survival tips at the end of the book, and people message me going, I didn't know about the mirror. I'm going to take a mirror now. And I'm just like, oh, I'm so happy, because passes information on, I'm just the messenger. But so I take a signal mirror. And I'm actually in New Zealand at the moment. I'm just finishing up 2 weeks of quarantine, having arrived 2 weeks ago. And I'm coming for an extended visit. And since I am here for an extended time, I'm doing a through hike to hike across the country, the whole length of New Zealand.
Yes.
And so so I've never done anything quite like this before, but I'm excited and trepidatious. But I'm really, of course, thinking about, what I need. I'm taking a satellite communicator. Obviously leaving my plans with people, and yeah, and making sure and making sure that I have sufficient layers. I'm not going to freeze and I'm not going to overheat, and really thinking these things through, going into this far less gung-ho than I might have done a few years ago, and really thinking through all possibilities of what could go wrong and preparing for that.
Man, that's great. That's great. So signal me. Oh, in a pocket. Oh, yeah. You gotta bring a coffee.
This army knife, yeah.
Gotta have a knife. That's in the rules. You gotta have a knife. Always pack a knife.
Right.
How did you get back on the trail? How did you switch your mindset to not be scared to go back out?
It's funny. I was never scared to go back, and I think I was still probably on the hoist when I decided I was going to come back to the trail.
Oh,
I'm not kidding. I think as soon as I was off the ground, it was like, I'm going to come back here and I'm going to finish this. And what was great about that is it was a motivation to make sure I recovered properly. I'm not a patient person. I'm not good at sitting still. The last thing I wanted to be was sitting in a wheelchair in rural New Zealand at my mum's house, having been told I just have to rest and recover. I was like, this is not what I want to be doing right now. I was so rested.
You can say it. This sucks.
It sucks. Yeah. This is like so far from where I wanted to be and living my life. But I knew that I wanted to get back on the trail so bad that, and I'd fallen in love with the Joshua Tree area. And I was like, I want to go back so much, but I can't go back and do that unless I make sure I recover properly. And so it was both a motivation to get better, but to get better properly and to, make sure I do a lot of physio and I really look after myself. And so when I got to go back there, it felt like a reward. Like, it wasn't scary.
Oh, that's great.
It was everything after that day felt like a reward, right? Like, it was a bonus. And what was wonderful was going back and taking friends with me so they could come on that journey with me. And I only found out like after the fact that one of my dear friends who came on that hike hadn't done a full day hike before. So she was like, she really went for it, and she was amazing. But we did this together, and I don't know, I felt the whole time it was surreal, because every time I was, on this trail, I was very aware of the fact it was like, oh, but I'm also over there somewhere, like lying out in the canyon. It was almost like it was real time. And
wow.
like these two parallels, like I'm here walking with my friends, but I'm also out there by myself, like dying. And I couldn't get that out of my mind the whole time, which made it just I felt grateful literally every single step of that hike. It was wonderful.
That's incredible. Oh my gosh. That's awesome.
And I hope to go back and do it again. Like, yeah. Hopefully.
Call me. I'll go with you.
Yeah. I'll take the whole crew. We'll just
come on. Oh, I love that. With some of your recovery stuff, I know actually Haley had asked you this earlier, but how's the recovery? And you said your ankle was kind of messed up, but
yeah. I mean, the ankle, the funny thing was, it was so much, obviously the hip was the priority. It was badly broken. I affected my mobility. I'd also really badly sprained the ankle, but because I wasn't even putting weight on it for 6 months, like it kind of went not unnoticed, but it wasn't the priority. And so it still causes me a lot of issues. Obviously I'm preparing to go on this big hike, so I've just had some steroids injected into it, and there's a lot of fluid on the ligament, and there's a lot, like the way that I've been walking for the past 3 years has kind of got a little bit pronated. So there's the things that I need to really manage it, and I think I'll always be managing that leg and that ankle for the rest of my life. But I almost don't mind it, because it just reminds me constantly that this could have been so much worse. And it sounds weird, but it's like, that is almost like a little daily, this little niggle is like a little bell going like, you could be dead, you might not be able to get. Here you are. It's not that I need reminding it, but it's I don't mind it, as long as it's not going to stop me from doing the things that I really want to be doing. And so far, knock on wood, it's been manageable.
Good.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I'm totally stoked you're going back out and to a major hike too. That's amazing.
Yeah. It's going to be a big one.
Gosh, I love it. One of the things that I personally carry in my survival kit, I'm going to throw this out there. So is they have little plastic, like they're almost like pill bottles, but they're waterproof. Anyway, they're match containers, and I put waterproof matches in one, and then cotton balls and Vaseline in the other, so you can start a fire. Anyway, little flint, just like that. Yeah, it's perfect.
I'm doing that. I'm going to be taking it now. That's a great tip.
Yeah,
that's a good tip.
So, and then actually, I'll give everybody one more, which was passed to me for water's sake. This came from my friend Jason Bunch, who I was stationed up in Alaska with, and he'd bring a small filter, like a water filter, fill up his Nalgene bottle, and every time he came to a river, he would drink the entire Nalgene bottle and then refill it with the river water, and then continue walking. So you were always 100% hydrated until the next river.
Excellent.
I was like, that's a good idea. So
yeah,
that's one of the things that I do. You end up peeing a lot more than you want to, but at least you're hydrated.
That's the main thing. That's the main thing. It's either that or you end up drinking pee, and so I know which one I'd rather have.
Yeah, I'll take the river.
Yeah, totally.
Oh my gosh. Claire, again, the floor is kind of open to you. Is there anything else you would pass to anybody else out there that goes hiking or that?
I just don't think that it won't happen to you. I hear from people all the time now, which is wonderful, who say, I'm always hiking or I'm always walking or I just go for long walks because they live somewhere that's kind of out in the countryside. And I never think to tell anyone where I'm going, because why would you? And you do it all the time, right? You feel a bit silly doing it. But, it's the easiest thing you can do. Just be like, hey, I'm going out on this walk. Just let somebody know your intention. I think that's just the key thing above anything else that you do. But yeah, like none of us is fallible. It doesn't matter how experienced you are. Like when it's human versus nature, like we are the very breakable, tiny, insignificant part of that puzzle. So just don't think it won't happen to you. Be smart about it. Always take more water. It upsets me when I read about people being rescued because they've gone out in the desert and they haven't taken any water, or they've taken one bottle between three of them or something. I'm like, just no.
Yeah.
Take water, because the thing with water, people go, it's heavy. It's like, it's gonna get lighter as you go. You're gonna be drinking it. Okay, you'll be glad you had it. Just don't skimp on the water, please. It sucks when you dehydrate it. It really does.
Brilliant advice. Brilliant. Yeah. Well, Claire, I thank you so much for coming on and sharing the story with us. For everybody out there, Things I Learned from Falling by Claire Nelson. If you haven't read it, if you haven't heard of it, go get it, go listen to it, go read it. It's what an incredible story. Incredible.
Thank you so much, Jason. Honestly, and I was so happy to do this because you guys who do search and rescue guys, honestly, like my hat will be eternally tipped off to you guys. I can't thank you all enough for what you do, and you go out every day, and I know you get to fly helicopters and it's super cool and it's super badass, but you're doing that and you're putting yourself on the line all the time, and what you're doing is not insignificant in any way. You're saving lives constantly. You're getting the bad guys, you're saving the good guys. Like, yeah, that's amazing. So I just want to say thank you.
Well, thank you too. I appreciate it. Awesome. Well, I'll tell you what, and with that, ladies and gentlemen, we are out of here. Thank you for tuning in. We hope you enjoyed this episode of the Real ResQ podcast. Please take a minute and, like my daughters like to tell me, like and subscribe. Oh yeah. I'm pulling chocks and taking off. But before I go, if anyone out there has a rescue story that they would be willing to share, I would be humbled and honored to have you as a guest. Or if you have any questions about any of the rescues or anything else that we talk about here on this podcast, send me an email, therealresq@gmail.com. That's therealresq@gmail.com. You can also check us out on our Facebook and Instagram page at The Real ResQ. That's at therealresq. I also want to give a special thank you to all of you staying on the watch today. Always remember that when that SAR alarm goes off, those in distress are praying for a miracle. They are going to get you. Until next time, fly safe and swim hard.